Time now for Focus. Today we head to Spain, where Basque separatist group ETA confirmed recently that it started disarming. The announcement coming 2.5 years after ETA said it was ending armed activity. But the Spanish government doesn't recognise the commission tasked with monitoring the ceasefire, and it still isn't prepared to hold talks with the group. Why is that, and what's changed in the Basque country since October 2011? Our team in Spain went to investigate, even meeting a former member of ETA.
In Bilbao, something extraordinary is underway. Basques whose family members were shot or killed in bombs planted by ETA are talking to some of the individuals responsible. Rosa is one of those who started this painful dialogue. Her husband Joseba, a policeman, was killed 20 years ago.
It was 8 o'clock in the morning. He was in his car, stopped at a red light nearby like every other day. They shot him twice in the neck. My son was in the passenger seat and he stooped low. Otherwise, they could have killed him too. Never until now had ETA said farewell to arms. So this is not just a simple truce. They've decided to no longer use their weapons. So let's seize this opportunity. We've got a future to build for our families, for our grandchildren.
30 kilometers away is the town of Baquio, a separatist stronghold. People are celebrating San Jose. Many residents here have relatives in prison for belonging to ETA. Even just a few months ago, it was difficult to get people here to talk openly to foreign cameras about ETA. The mood is changing, but very slowly.
The road ahead of us isn't all roses. It's going to take time, but we'll try to make peace.
ETA announced a definitive end to violence more than 2 years ago, but the Spanish government has ruled out talks after previous failures. Ángel Rodrigo is a conservative Basque councillor. Like many others, he's lived with 2 police bodyguards for 11 years. Do you still look over your shoulder?
Yes, it's an old habit. I still watch my back.
He thinks for peace to be possible here, ETA needs to be crushed. He takes us to a plaque in honour of the 829 people killed by ETA over the last 4 decades.
Now we want ETA to say we are no more. They have to admit that they've been wrong, that the use of violence wasn't the right path to reach their political goals, that they ask for forgiveness.
Is there any chance of ETA apologising to its victims? We reached out to former members of the organisation and one of them agreed to meet us. Maguila, as he was known in ETA, spent 22 years in prison for murder.
What I did when I was younger, when I decided to join ETA, was really something I pondered seriously, and I don't regret it. I would have taken the same decision in similar circumstances. But the act of repentance is something strictly moral. It's not something that should be cornerstone to finding a solution to this conflict. Also, many people here would give no credit to a public repentance, so I do not think it's necessary.
We return to Baquio. These people are protesting against the fact that ETA prisoners are sent to jails far from their homes. It's a deliberate policy by the Madrid government. Away from the crowd, some of them tell us their relatives are kept 800 kilometers away.
Many people don't want forgiveness, they want revenge. I take the bus on Friday afternoons with my daughter. We spend the whole night on the bus. We visit her father on Saturday. We take the bus again in the evening and return home on Sunday morning. It's one visit a month.
Many Basques say for the peace process to move forward, hundreds of prisoners should be transferred nearer to their homes. For the moment, Rajoy's government has no intention of sitting down to talk.
Now, for more on the disarmament of ETA militants, we can now cross to Bilbao and speak to Paul Rios. He's the head of Lucari, a citizen network that works in the Basque country to promote peace, dialogue and reconciliation. Hello, and thank you very much for being with us. Now,
Hello.
the Spanish government and even the Spanish press aren't convinced by ETA's disarmament, but our report shows optimism amongst locals, even relatives of victims. Is that what you found?
Definitely, yes. The violence of ETA has caused a lot of suffering and pain and has disturbed the life in the Basque country. And the end of the violence was a very important task for the Basque society. And ETA announced the end of violence in October 2011, but the Basque society needed more guarantees to be sure that there was no risk of coming back to violence. In that regard, the ETA's disarmament was a priority, and now the disarmament has started, and this new progress in the peace process is seen as something very positive by a very vast majority of the Basque country. And now we are more confident because the process is more and more irreversible.
Now, why doesn't the Spanish government recognise the International Verification Commission, which is tasked with monitoring the ceasefire?
Well, I think the Spanish government's strategy is asking only for the disband of ETA and not the needed strategy to promote the peace process. And I think that in this context, the government doesn't want anybody who could offer a different perspective or strategy to make progress. And for example, the International Verification Commission is working to implement a disarmament, demobilization, and reintegration agenda as the United Nations proposes to ensure peace in countries affected by violent conflicts. And the involvement of the government is needed to deal with this DDR agenda, but is refusing this responsibility.
Now, what's it going to take for the government in Madrid to sit down with ETA? An apology, perhaps, as a councillor for the People's Party in Bilbao suggests in our report?
Well, being honest, I think that the Spanish government will never sit down with ETA because it only wants ETA to disband. So maybe the question is, how can you sit down with somebody that has been disbanded? It has no sense. So I think the Spanish government is not listening to the requests coming from the Basque society. And even more, very recently, the Basque president has said that Mariano Rajoy hasn't responded to all the petitions made by the Basque government. So I think that the Spanish government is not helping us in this critical moment in the peace process.
Now, as we saw in our report, one of the issues is prisoners being sent far away from home. Why won't the government budge on this particular issue? Wouldn't that perhaps help matters?
Well, I don't know. I'm going to give an example. So maybe you know that 6 months ago, the European Human Rights Tribunal sentenced against the Spanish state, and almost 60 ETA prisoners were released. And the government had no other alternative to accept the sentence, but some group of victims and the right wing of the Popular Party criticized the government for doing it. So I think that having that precedent in mind, the government thinks that to deal with the prisoners issue could be very risky from an electoral point of view. So, and I think that this is a very big mistake. I'm sure that by resolving the issue of prisoners, the definitive end of ETA is going to be closer. And anyway, I think that the Spanish government should do something because the Basque society is demanding that, and because it has no sense to have prisoners far away from home in this new peaceful situation.
Now, we've been seeing images of José Luis Rodríguez Zapatero. He, of course, was Prime Minister when the ceasefire was declared back in October 2011. Have things changed since Mariano Rajoy became Prime Minister? Are the dealings between the Basque Country and the government in Madrid any different?
Yeah, well, I'm not sure, but well, I know that the previous Prime Minister, Mr. Zapatero, so he promoted the 2006 peace process, and very recently, I have read that he has been in Colombia supporting the peace process, and he says in an interview that politics, dialogue, and agreement are essential to get peace, and I think that maybe he was more willing to promote the peace process than Mariano Rajoy. But well, this is the situation that we have, and maybe we are only speculating.
Now, what state would you say ETA is in right now, 2.5 years on from the ceasefire? How many active members are there still?
Well, I'm not sure, but So security services say that there are still 50 members of ETA, and besides, I know that there are more or less 200 people on the run and 200 prisoners in Spain and France. So I know that ETA is a weak organization at this moment, but I think that there are some problems from the different members of ETA that we have to resolve.
Now, you've expressed disappointment with the Spanish authorities. What about the French ones? What do people in the Basque Country expect from them?
Well, the French authorities have been collaborating with the Spanish ones during those last years, and they follow the strategy of the Spanish government. So they think that this is only a Spanish problem. So, well, I don't share this idea because, for example, we know that the vast majority or a large amount of the ETA's weapons are in France. So I think that the French government should be interested in this peace process, but well, they are following the strategy of the Spanish government and nothing more. So, but at the same time, we are trying to open new opportunities there in France. We are collaborating with organization there called Les Chemins de la Paix, organization of the French Basque Country, and well, we expect that one time or another we could open, new opportunities for the French authorities to get involved in this peace process.
Okay, thank you very much indeed, Paul Rios, for joining us from Bilbao. Time now to go to a short break. When we come back, I'll have the headlines for you, and we'll have more on Barack Obama's first official visit to Brussels, with Ukraine dominating the agenda. Stay tuned for that and plenty more.